Well, first day I got kicked out.
You know, my agent called and said, "Hey, Cubs just selected you." I was like, "Yeah, I just saw it." So we used to have to look on the internet.
Yeah. We never seen a paper nail. I didn't know if it was nails in it or not. You know,
got me chills with that. Wow. What?
Did you even think you were going to make the team?
No.
Jersey doesn't really fit me. There's no name on my jersey.
Hi again, everybody, and welcome to the Let's Rain podcast presented by Cincy Light, Cincinnati's light beer. And don't forget, every Cincy Light you purchase, whether it's at the bar, in a can, at a tailgate, in the arena, every single one benefits Bearcat Athletics. I'm Dan Hoard, broadcasting from inside the LLH Healthcare Studio. We've got an awesome episode of the pod coming up. We're going to go north of the border and talk to a former Bearcat quarterback who's become a legend in the Canadian Football League, the great Zach Collaros. You're going to love this conversation. And when it's finished, don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe to the Let's Rain podcast. Now, a quick reminder that life is a small word with a lot going on. The University of Cincinnati's online programs are built to fit in the life that you're already living. Along the way, support is available when you need it, and you'll be part of a Bearcat community that stays connected long after graduation. Learn more at online.uc.edu. I am so excited to catch up with a former Bearcat who has become a legend north of the border. He is a two-time Canadian Football League Most Outstanding Player. He has started in the equivalent of the Super Bowl, the Grey Cup, 6 times. I'm speaking of former Bearcat great Zach Collaros. Zach, it is awesome to see you. We're catching up with you in your off-season home, not far from Toronto. How is life after more than a decade in the CFL?
I appreciate that intro, Dan. It's good to see you. You left out the 4 losses in the Grey Cup, so I appreciate that. And it's great. It's great to be on here. Great to see you. The Cincy Light behind you. It's it feels like 15 years ago. It's awesome.
So I was looking at your NFL draft class. Andrew Luck was the first pick. RG3 was the second pick. There are only 2 quarterbacks from that draft class still playing in the NFL, Russell Wilson and Kirk Cousins. You're still going strong in the CFL. You're 14 years in. I assume you intend to keep playing for several more. How proud are you of your longevity?
I guess you never really think about it, you know. The season comes to an end, you know, whether you win or you lose. And, you know, you kind of, as I've gotten older, you think about the next step, obviously, but you kind of fall back into the rhythm of, okay, you know, what do I need to do to get my body right again, you know, to go through another training camp and to try to go through another season. It's been that way, since I can remember. It's just kind of how things are, right? So I'm proud of it. I don't think much of it, you know. It's kind of the rhythm, and it's kind of just my routine of just taking care of myself and taking care of my body. And obviously, you know, my wife plays a big part of that. And having kids now it makes it a little more difficult, but so much more rewarding. You know, it's just, I got to get up a little bit earlier to get out the door in the morning to make sure that I'm home now, because they've started school, to try to help facilitate, get them out the door and all those things. And then pickups. And yeah, I always divert just talking about my children. That's all I really care about. But I'm proud of it. But at the same time, I'm always thinking of what's next. And if you ask me about what's next, I really don't know. So it's just kind of always in the back of my head.
I grew up not too far from Buffalo. The first professional football game I ever went to was the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Before I ever saw a Buffalo Bills game, I went to a Hamilton Tiger Cats game as a kid. That's one of the CFL teams that you've played for in your career. The field's a little bit bigger. The rules are a little bit different. Does that suit your game particularly well, do you think?
I think it definitely did when I was coming out. You know, you mentioned Russ is still playing. You know, Russ and I are probably the same height, same kind of style. Obviously, he was a lot more talented than I was, but same style of play, you know, running around and extending plays. You know, the NFL and college as well has kind of adapted to that style. You know, I feel like now it's just kind of put your best athlete at quarterback and let him make plays, whether that's in middle school, high school, college, and you're seeing that, that transition and how that's morphed, college football and the NFL. I think the Canadian Football League has always had that. If you think back to the most obvious, Doug Flutie, I mean, that was his thing. He also was an unbelievable passer, but the wider field, the more freedom for the quarterback, that, part of the evolution of college when I was playing was the zone read stuff, whether you're reading the backside defensive end or the front side defensive end. I remember the front side defensive end thing when Brian Kelly was with us. Like, that was revolutionary those 2 years. And that was something that really helped me kind of put myself on the map a little bit. But the CFL has always had that. And then one of the advantages I think that has helped me extend my career as well is within that zone read kind of philosophy and play, you're able to pull the football and then throw the ball downfield. They have much more leniency for offensive linemen being downfield, right? So that certainly has helped too. So I think it was just like a perfect situation. The people that brought me in to Toronto, Jim Barker, who's still involved there, was the GM, and Scott Milanovic, now the head coach in Hamilton, and spent about 5-6 years in the NFL after working with him. I think they saw the UConn game for my sophomore year. One of them did, and they're like, hey, he's running around a lot. Like, let's put him on a negotiation list. And I can recall, I never thought I was going to play in the NFL. I wanted to play in that last bowl game just with my buddies and just really get into coaching. That was really my plan. And then I got a phone call to go to a training camp in Toronto, the CFL. And again, this is back around the time, like, the NFL Network wasn't on TV a lot. They weren't putting these games on television on any major networks. There was no streaming. I just didn't know how to work it. So I knew nothing about the CFL. But I remember my agent at the time, still a good friend of mine. My dad was like, you can coach it whenever. Why don't you just go up and try to play a little bit longer? And we're still doing it.
Did you start out thinking that the CFL could be a path to the NFL, or did you realize pretty quickly that this is a great place for me?
I mean, everybody has that dream of having an opportunity down south, for sure, right? But my first 2 seasons, really all I could think about was coming back home and, kind of starting my life back in, whether that be Cincinnati or, Coach Jones had left for Tennessee around that time, and I had an opportunity of maybe going with him somewhere. And I still had a lot of connections, to possibly going the route that I thought I would always go after college. I had a pretty good season. It was my 3rd or 4th season in the league, and there was a little bit of chatter, and I ended up doing my ACL, so that kind of went by. And during that season, I actually met my wife, so that got serious, and yeah, the NFL thing kind of went past. I think I was around 28, 29, and I'm too much of a realist, and so I kind of figured, like, there's no chance here, so just let me make as much money as I possibly can until I figure something out, or until they figure out that I'm not very good and they just stop paying me. And I'm still doing it. So it's afforded me a really great life. Again, I met my wife, and I have a beautiful family now, and it's been a real blessing. It really has. It's not what I thought when I first came up here. Like, all I could think about my first season was, I can't wait to get out of here.
Well, you're very humble, but if you do a Google search for the greatest quarterbacks in CFL history, which I did, your name pops up on the list. So you can joke about, they're going to figure out that I'm not so great, but that's not true. You have truly proven to be one of the best to ever do it in that league.
Yeah, that's funny to hear. Again, there's a very rich history in this league. It goes back over 100 years, so it's really neat, really cool to be mentioned with a lot of those guys. I mean, the Warren Moons and Doug Flutie's. I think those guys are on another level. But statistically, playing as long as I had, you start to, to show up on some of those lists, right? So that's really cool. But as you know, Dan, with anything else, I've been really, really fortunate, really blessed to be around great coaches, great teammates, and all that stuff in football, which I think is why it's the best game. All that stuff really has to gel and mesh for the quarterback to receive, like, the accolades that he does. It's the ultimate team sport. But I've been on some really great teams and been around some really great people, so that helps.
All right, let's go back to the beginning, because you were on a great team in high school from Steubenville 2 state titles. You were 41-1 as the starting quarterback there. When you came to Cincinnati, it was Brian Kelly's first year as the head coach. But what I didn't remember was, did he start recruiting you, or did Coach D'Antonio have you thinking Cincinnati, and then Coach Kelly kind of got you to stay?
Or anybody on that staff. I had committed pretty early to play baseball in my high school career. Really because I didn't really understand the process of the entire recruiting thing. And I remember my parents didn't either, because it was their first go at it. I was their first kid. So like the first offer I had was from Kent State, and it was really good to play baseball. And I was like, okay, like I'm taking this. I'm taking it now. I was like 16, 17, right? And then I played more and more football, and Kent offered me to play football as well. They're like, hey, if you're going to be here, we might as well like give you a full ride and you could do both. So I was like, cool, perfect. And I really didn't get a lot of looks. I played both ways, obviously, in high school. So a lot of teams were like, hey, you could probably be a preferred walk-on at safety, but we don't know about quarterback. And I'll never forget, I told the story many times. I was playing basketball, I was shooting around like in 7th or 8th period with one of my best friends. She ended up playing at West Virginia and was an All-American there. And I got a phone call from a 513 number, and it was Brian Kelly. And I didn't know who Brian Kelly was. I really didn't. And to the extent that I knew about Cincinnati football or Cincinnati in general, to be quite honest with you, was like Kenyon Martin and watching those teams in the Final Four. And like, I was obsessed with basketball. I just love basketball. And I remember Coach Kelly was like, I don't know, like this DVD just came across my desk. I just took the job in Cincinnati. He's like, I don't know if you could play quarterback, but you could play something. You could play something for us. Will you come down here like tomorrow for a visit? And I was like, well, I got a game tonight. We played, I think it was Martins Ferry. And he's like, well, it's like the last recruiting visit. We need like to see you in person if this is going to happen. And I was kind of wishy-washy on it. I called my dad. I'm like, I'm committed already. Like, I don't feel like driving 4.5 hours. Like, why don't we just do the Kent thing? And my dad was like, are you crazy? This is BCS football. I was like, we're driving down there. So I played the basketball game that night and drove down and had a great visit. Met people on that visit that I'm still like really close friends with. So it all came together really in a really cool way.
What was your relationship like with BK?
Early on, it wasn't contentious. I was just this little like 5th or 6th string guy, and it was always just kind of like, hey, do what I tell you to do. Don't go run around. You can't do that at this level. And I had a mouth on me. Unfortunately, I would kind of talk back, and he'd always say to me, like, I'm going to put you on defense. I'm going to give you a black jersey if you keep acting this way. And but I always thought it was good. We would meet after the season. He was really good about having like those exit meetings after the season and telling me what I needed to get better at. He allowed me to play baseball, obviously, after my first season. But I remember one of the first meetings I had with him, I think it was one of the second ones, and the most important one, in my opinion. It was after a baseball season, and, I had a really good spring ball, a fairly good spring ball, whatever. And he was like, listen, you could do this, but like, I need to know that you know what you're doing, like in 7-on-7 and team. Like, I need you to go through your progressions. I know that you can run, I know that you're athletic, all that stuff, but I need you to really lock into the details, like the mind part of it all, right? I'm like, all right, I'll try that as best I can. And what was really funny about that is I just fell in love with that process. I really fell in love with the X's and O's piece of it, the schematic piece. Like, oh, if there's a 1 and a 5 technique here, like this is probably coming. Oh, if the safety does, like, it just really opened my mind up to the game, and I really fell in love with it. So that was a really pivotal conversation that him and I had. And then when I had the opportunity to actually play for him, I thought our relationship was great. Like, he was, to me, I always describe him to people as like, he's the ultimate CEO. He was very good at kind of like doing the macro thing. He could micro coach and micro manage if he needed to, but he was really good at kind of delegating and letting his assistants do his thing, or do their things rather. And then with me, he always kept it light. And I think he kind of knew my personality, so he could obviously, crack a joke at me and make fun of me, and he knew that I wasn't really going to take it the wrong way. He could also really get on me because he probably had an understanding, or somebody gave him an understanding of where I came from and how I grew up, and like, if you were slacking, if you weren't doing things properly, like they'd really get after us. So he could do that to me, and he'd understand that I could take that. So I always thought it was good. And over the years, he, one thing I credit him and Coach Jones as well. And I'm sure they have people helping them. They kind of keep an eye on everything. But anytime something's happened up here, I've gotten a text message or, hey, saw that game. Congratulations on a great season. And he's always been professional like that with me. And I don't know if I'm in the minority or not. I love Brian Kelly. He did a lot for my career. I know a lot of guys that played for those teams really have a ton of respect for him and love for him too.
You dropped a reference to baseball that was kind of matter of fact, but I'm sure a lot of people watching and listening to this don't know that you did play a year of baseball at UC. Did you voluntarily give it up, or did the coaches say, listen, if you want to be the starting quarterback here,
yeah, Coach Jones
got to
concentrate on like, hey, you can play, but I don't want you to play. So I read between the lines there and understood. But that year of baseball was a lot of fun. Had a lot of good friends from those teams, and it was so much different than high school baseball, obviously from a talent level and like the pitching that you're seeing, but also like just the approach. It was more of like a baseball laid back feel, as opposed to like, again, being from where I'm from, everything was like kind of militaristic. Like, hey, we got to do it this way, this way, this way. There's no screwing around. It was very laid back. So that to me was really weird coming from like the football background and having to be vocal as a quarterback and having to kind of be the pseudo leader, that kind of stuff. And I think I kind of found a role on the baseball team being that person, but shoot, that year off really killed me in the batting box. Like it was just like going from playing Legion baseball in high school, seeing like 85, he's bringing it to like, I think my first at bat was in the Big Ten Big East Classic down there in Florida. My dad came down for it, flew down, and it was against Michigan. And I remember I was seeing pitches, like I had no idea what these pitches are. And just, I don't think I struck out once in high school, maybe like once or twice, just couldn't even come close to a ball, So I was fortunate to hit above. I think I hit above like 220. I was very fortunate at that.
350 on base percentage. I looked it up.
Yeah,
350 on base percentage.
I liked playing center field.
But
I could not field a ground ball anymore. And we had a good shortstop. And, but they wanted to get me on the field a little bit. And I loved shagging balls in high school. So I got really good at playing center. And they're like, you could do that. Coach Cleary was awesome. He really was awesome with me. Another guy that I was fortunate to be around and on the baseball side, and him and I had a good relationship. One of the funniest stories, and I won't belabor this, but we never bunted in high school, like never. And I can remember that year in baseball, I was actually hitting the ball fairly well at this point. I was on a nice little stretch. It's probably why my on-base percentage is where it was, probably for these 3 games. But it was a big game, and I can't remember who we were playing. I think it was like Louisville or something like that. And it's like the 5th inning. And we're, it's a situation like first and second, and I'm like batting in the 9 hole. Like, I'm like the biggest guy on the team batting the 9 hole. It's not great. And he gives me the bunt signal, and I'm like, I can't lay this bunt down. I don't know how to bunt. So I called a timeout. Like, when does a player ever call a timeout? And I walk over to him. He's like, what's up? He's like, I don't think I can get this down. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I can't bunt. He's like, are you serious? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, get out. He just took me right out of the game, brought somebody in, like in the 5th inning. I remember I went and put my shoes on. I think I chewed like 5,000 pieces of bubble gum and just sat there and screwed around with my buddies. I was like, Coach, I'm just being honest with you. I cannot get this bunch.
You work?
I'm telling you.
Yeah.
No, I did.
Did you work on bunting after that so that you wouldn't have to come out the next time? No. All right, let's talk football. You redshirted your first year, 2007. Then in 2008, that's the Orange Bowl season. Cincinnati played 5 quarterbacks that year. Dustin Grutza gets hurt in the second game. And then in the Akron game, Tony Pike breaks bones in his left forearm. And you're the guy that gets called on to finish that game. You helped Cincinnati win. It was obviously a big win and a season that wound up in a BCS bowl game. What do you remember about that day in the Rubber Bowl?
To start the game. And I got run over by Sean Lemon like 3 times. If you cut that tape on, and Sean has played in the CFL for like 14 years too. He's probably a Hall of Fame guy. Every time I talk to him, he's like, do you remember that day in the Rubber Bowl? But for some reason, you were on the front line of kickoff return. I just ran you over. I'm like, yeah, dude, by the 3rd time, I just olayed you. I'm like, go ahead. You got it. And yeah, I remember having to go into that game and not really having a clue. Well, like I knew obviously what the plays were and everything, but I hadn't played quarterback in like such a long time. I just ran around. I remember Trevor Canfield that was like so encouraging and like, man, you did a great job. And I think the next week we played Marshall, and then I was supposed to play in that game, and then I didn't. And I remember that was like a devastating day for me. And my little brother at the time was like 9, and he was crying. I'm like, it's gonna be all right. It's gonna be okay. Yeah, but I remember being in the Rubber Bowl, and I can remember getting run over a couple times on kickoff and looking in the crowd, and my dad being like, "What are you doing?" Yeah.
Well, I mean, that might be a first. Run over on the kick return team
It's there.
playing quarterback by the end of the game. There probably aren't too many guys that have done that.
Like the next day in special teams meetings, like, Zach, I love you for trying, man. Sorry we put you in the spot.
Well, the next year was very different. The Sugar Bowl season, the undefeated regular season. Again, Tony re-injured his left arm. And now you have to come in and start 4 straight games. You played great. Cincinnati doesn't go to the Sugar Bowl if you didn't play as well as you did. 75% completion percentage, 10 touchdowns, only a couple of picks. How hard was it to give the job back to Tony when his arm healed?
At the time, I don't think it was that difficult, honestly. You kind of understand football etiquette and that kind of stuff, and like he was our starter, so I didn't. I was fortunate that I think Chaz and I were like kind of 2A, 2B at the time, and Coach Kelly played me in the South Florida game, and he had a great play call, and Jason Kelce and Jacob Ramsey are leading up through, and I run untouched, on that run. That run like changed my life for sure. So I was fortunate to get into that game, kind of get my feet wet, and some things went well. So I had a little bit of confidence going to the next one, but in the back of my head, I knew that was going to happen. And there was times in games, man, I want to get out there, but when you're preparing as the backup, your mind's kind of a little bit elsewhere. It's more so just trying to help the starter, and all those things. But yeah, it's a lot of momentum. I think one of the toughest parts was never really getting able to play a full season, with that staff and with like that crew of players. Like I always think about that would have been cool, like to see how that all played out, But again, a lot of great people around me. Armand Binns catching passes that like he shouldn't have caught, and Marty being able to run after the catch like nobody else. Isaiah Peed is Isaiah Peed. Just I think that was really when he took off too. We were doing a lot of that again, reading the front side end and some of the things that he could do with the ball in his hands made my life really simple. And Coach Kelly had a really good feel of how to spread the football field, and where I was running with me and Isaiah, or me and John, or me and Jake. Or just like, how do we find ways to put the ball in the Marty Gilliard's hand as many times as possible? Like that was always the plan. Like, hey, we need to get Marty 5 or 6 touches in his first quarter to get him going. That really helped me and helped my style, helped my confidence to be able to play well for that stretch of time.
I'm glad you mentioned the 75-yard touchdown run against USF. As you just said, you thought it changed your life. USF was a top 25 team at the time. So was Cincinnati. Nationally televised game. I think Chris Fowler did the game on ESPN. It was 3rd and 10 or 3rd and 11, something like that. And suddenly the quarterback is streaking down the field against this really good defense for a 75-yard TD. At what point in that play were you like, where is everybody? Am I going to take this to the house?
15 yards. Like in high school, I could run away from everybody. But again, I was just told all the time, you can't do this at this level. You can't do this. So I was just waiting to have to make a move on somebody. I can remember getting up to the safety. And again, thinking to myself, like, he should be faster than me. And he wasn't. I ran by him. But yeah, that was a crazy moment for sure. Like for all of us that were involved. I can remember being on the sideline talking to one of my best buddies, Tom DeTemple. Like before it all happened, like, hey, like when we get back, you think we can hit up Holy Grail? And then Tony gets injured, and Coach like yelling, "Collaros, hurry!" I'm like, doing how am I run out there? I remember like a ball got batted down and intercepted, and I can remember come up young and BK being like, "I didn't want you to do that." I'm like, I didn't want to throw an interception either, But yeah, that was a good defense. It's what's funny now, Dan, is I'm so old in my profession. is most of the guys I'm playing with have no idea who I am. Like, at least like in that 5-year period, we all kind of knew who each other were because you're watching games on TV, right? So there was like some understanding for the American guys coming up. You're like, oh, hey, I remember watching you on Thursdays. I remember watching you on Saturdays. Like when I met Jeremiah Mazzoli, I'm like, this is a celebrity to me, you know? We're the exact same age, you know? But it's so funny now because I it's just not really my style of play anymore. There's times in a game we're out to run and I can still give a little wiggle, you know, like, ooh, and then somebody will send them that and like, damn, Zach, we didn't know you could do that. I'm like, yeah, it was a long time ago. So it's always funny getting those guys' reactions when there's like a day, I think, when the GoBearcats page puts out like, this is the Zach Collaros thing. This is the day it happened. And like somehow it always gets kind of passed around our team. And that's just always a really funny day in the locker room for me.
So there are probably 2 games in UC football history that people put at the top of the list, 1 and 1A. One was the Notre Dame win a few years ago during the college football playoff season. Then obviously the other game is the final game of the regular season in 2009, the so-called hike to Bins game at Pitt. Great comeback. So Tony got off to a terrible start in that game. And at some point, I can't remember whether it was second quarter or third quarter, Brian Kelly has you start warming up on the sideline. Did you think you were coming in?
I did. Because, again, I think Tony played in the Illinois game and then played a little bit in the West Virginia game. So he was still dealing with that ailment with his hand, right? And I remember I threw the ball really well in warmups. And he pulled me aside at some point in warmups and was like, hey, like, just be ready to go. Like, you know, I don't say this to you, but just be ready to go today. And again, I was throwing the ball well in the warm-up. But I can recall him telling me to be ready to play, and I was ready to go. I think I ran a couple plays there on the goal line, and it's kind of the zone read stuff. But I'm happy I didn't go in the game because look at what happened. You know, Tony played really well there in the second half. Again, we found ways to get the ball to Marty, get the ball in his hands, and he did his thing. And yeah. Sometimes that clip gets sent too, and I really just can't believe the way that they played Armand on that play. I think we were in some kind of empty set, and they're playing press man and on Armand Benz. Like, thank you, good luck. Like, good luck. Yeah, I mean, that's if you ask Tony, it's probably the easiest throw of his career. It's just press man. There's nobody there, and you got one of the, if not the best, you know, I'm gonna go get this ball out of the air guy that any of us ever played with. So really cool.
How strange was the Sugar Bowl experience for you?
Strange. Even looking back, it was kind of strange, but fun. You know, I don't know if it would have went that much differently. I'm probably in the minority of thinking that Florida team was really good, really good. I don't think that we had bad weeks of practice. I really don't. You know. I thought with the stat that we had, we still did a pretty good job of practicing the way that we always practiced with Coach Kelly. And really, he was the only one missing from it all, you know? Is there things that I think everybody wants to looks back at and says, like, we could have handled those things better? Yes. You know, but you live and you learn. It was a fun week in Orleans, though. A lot of fun. I've been back to New Orleans quite a few times after that. I had a lot of fun down there.
I have no doubt. Well, it is definitely a good place to go as a college student for a bowl game. No doubt about that.
I remember, like, you know, how hard it was to come out of those games. And I can remember Coach Quinn, we were down like 28-0. He looked at me, he's like, you're not going on the game. He said, I'm not throwing you out there to the Wolves like this. I'm like, cool. Thank you. I mean, they were really getting after us. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the best team in the country. They didn't win the national championship because they happened to lose one game. But by the end of the year, that Florida team was really the best team of the country. Yeah. So the next year, you get your chance to be the full-time starter, and you were it for the next 2 seasons. First team All Big East the next year. And then you ended your career in the Liberty Bowl, where Cincinnati played this year. But in your case, it was 49 days after breaking your ankle and being taken off the field on a cart against West Virginia. As legend has it, you said to your head coach, Butch Jones, getting on the cart, being wheeled off the field, I will be back for a bowl game. Did that happen?
No, I can't remember if I said it. I have no idea. I mean, I definitely. What I remember is being pulled into coming to the locker room, and I was crying out just because I thought it was my last time I was ready to play football. And they brought my parents down, and nothing you're asking me, I'm actually answering. So I apologize. But what I remember the most is my mom watching like Isaiah and a couple other guys get like an IV to rehydrate, and she just thinking, it's like, what goes on in these lockers? Like I can remember her. That was like what freaked her out. That's like that's one of the things that I remember too. Yeah, in the moment, I think I was just very, very sad, obviously, and disappointed the way that I thought my career was going to end. And Bob and the training staff, I love Bob Mangine, and the staff was just like, hey, Dr. Calcimo did a really good surgery on you. I think Dr. Calcimo has saved his ankle quite a few times because of like what he put in there. There's been quite a few times where I probably should have shattered it again. And I would go see a doctor up here and they'd be like, whoever did this surgery did a really good job because you should be like in a boot right now. So, shout out to Dr. Calcimo. I've thanked him a lot over the years about that. But yeah, when Bob told me that I had an opportunity to play, like that I could play, on that injury if I got to a certain point, then yeah, it was just kind of full steam ahead in the training room. And again, it was fun though, because you're around your buddies, you're around the training staff who you develop relationships with over the years and the other athletes. So that was easy. I hated getting in the cold tub. I'm not a big swimmer guy, but that wasn't fun. But outside of that, it was cool.
So is there still a plate and some screws in that ankle?
So there again, it's definitely like I've definitely been pulled down similarly to the way that I was pulled down in that game, and it's kind of sent the energy to other places, I guess, in my foot or in my ankle, and it just would develop like a bruise or a sprain of some sort. And again, I've been told by some of the doctors, like, hey, we watched it. This should have broke, but that plate saved it. So yeah.
Interesting. Now, I don't know if you realize it, but when guys get injured now, and it could be any sport, football, baseball, basketball, whatever, at the University of Cincinnati, Bob Mangine uses you as the example. He'll tell these guys, I got this guy back, or this guy came back 45 days after having surgery on his ankle. You can play in 2 weeks. So that's what you've done to the next generation of Bearcat athletes. It's mutual. Trust me. He loves you too.
Yeah, I mean, most competitive people are wired the same way. Again, and I developed like such a deep bond and friendship with my teammates there and people who are lifelong friends. It's the college experience, and I think we probably won't talk about this. It's kind of been corrupted by some of the stuff that's going on now with the NIL situation. But I mean, when I look back at my college experience from a football standpoint, it's just like it was a lot like my high school experience, because you just develop such great friendships with the people that you're around. You spend so much time, with them. They become like family. Like I know people roll their eyes when they say it's like a brotherhood and this and that. But I mean, really, I spend more time those 5 years with those people than anybody else, and probably anybody else like in my life, because whether you're in the living room with them, you're in class with them, you're in the training room with them, you're in the weight room with them. Like it's just every day you're around these people. So, again, it's not just me. A lot of people wired the same way. I wanted to come back and just play like one more game with my buddies. That's what it was about. And again, the university has done a lot for me. So that probably in the back of my head too, like, hey, like I love this place. I want to play one more time, in front of our fans in a bowl game, with my family there. All those things really helped to push through. But again, it ain't like it wasn't that difficult. I'm just doing like extensions. It wasn't that bad, It wasn't curing cancer or anything, Dan. I just was, the training room.
Among other things, in addition to your great on-field career at UC, you survived living with Travis Kelce. Did you live with both Kelce brothers, or just
Jason and Travis lived together for 2 years, along with Alex Hoffman, Craig Parmenter, Evan Davis, Kendall Coleman. Who else was in that house? If I leave somebody off, they're going to be upset at me if anybody sees this. I think that was our house. Yeah. Me, Jason, and that crew were going to live together, and then everybody knows the Travis situation. So it was like, hey, Trav, you're coming to live with us too. So yeah, those two guys, I spent more time in their bedroom playing video games and not going to class. Unfortunately, one of my regrets. Yeah, then I definitely should have. Yeah, so we lived together for 2 years in that house, and then me, Travis, and Demetrius Richardson moved over to what's that apartment complex now? I don't remember that. Anyway, we lived together for 3 years. Sorry, 3 total years. Yeah, good times.
Can you believe the global phenomenon that he's become?
The Taylor Swift, his fiance thing, I think is obviously taking it to the next level. I don't even like talking about this because like everybody talks about this. I'm not surprised. I've been telling people this for years about both of them. I'm not surprised because they're such good people, for one, and they're so charismatic. And like, I don't think a lot of people knew that about maybe Travis when we were at UC because he was a little more reserved. Unless you were really, really close with him or he trusted you, then that would really shine through. But yeah, those guys can just do anything. And again, the people, they're like magnets. People gravitate to them. I think that's why we all kind of really resonated together because we all just had fun being around each other, right? And those two guys were a big part of it, you know. And again, I tell my wife most of my favorite memories are like just the 6 or 7 of us sitting on the couch and like basically doing what they do on their podcast now. Those conversations, those arguments were always so much fun. So I'm not surprised because again, they're both great people. They both, I think, had some kind of vision, some kind of plan, especially Jason, of like, what if I'm able to do X, that could maybe lead to this. And they've executed all of it. And again, I think it's been fairly easy because they're just being themselves.
He busted out your jersey. I think it was your CFL jersey on his podcast. What was the reaction like when he did that for you?
So excited. And I'm just like, it's just trap, man. Like, but I appreciate that because again, the NFL is the NFL, the CFL is the CFL, and we don't get as much notoriety, obviously. And they're so popular right now. It really did a lot, you know, for our league and for our organization. You know, since then, our organization has sent, you know, Jason stuff, and he's worn it, put it on his social media, put his family in all of it. So they've done a lot to help me and really our league, you know, get more eyeballs on for sure. So that was really cool. But seeing the little bobblehead in the background is always funny too. Sorry.
What's a Grey Cup like? I mentioned at the beginning, it's the equivalent of the Super Bowl in Canada. You've started 6 of them. You've been part of 3 teams that won. I know one of those times you weren't the starting quarterback, but what is the Grey Cup like north of the border?
Obviously never played in one, but I've never even attended one, right? But one of the first things that really stuck out to me about the Grey Cup, the whole experience, the week of it, and I was a 4-string guy in Toronto my rookie year, was just like the intimate experience of it all. It's really a party for the country of Canada. Like it's part of the culture. It's part of the fabric. Like people really love it. So it doesn't matter which team is in the game. Everybody ascends on that city. And it was in Toronto that year. And I can remember going to a restaurant just on my own, like in between meetings and stuff like that during that week. And there was people from Calgary, there's people from Saskatchewan, there's people from Winnipeg, people from Ottawa. I'm looking around like, what is going on? Like, why are all these different jerseys in here? Like, because we're playing the Stampeders from Calgary. It should be Toronto and Calgary. And it's not like that at all. It's more of a really fun fan experience. Like people set aside that week. It's like a vacation for a lot of people, for families. I've met so many people where it's the grandfather, the dad, the son, the daughter, like the whole family comes, and it's a big deal for them. So again, I've never been to a Super Bowl, but it's a really intimate, really cool experience. The Grey Cup week is for a player. There's a lot that goes into it, just like the Super Bowl week. There's just a lot of media stuff that you have a responsibility and obligation to do, and you got to do all like the photo, all that kind of stuff, right? It makes it difficult from a efficiency standpoint to make sure that you're planning, you know, properly for the game. I've been fortunate that I've played in a lot of them, so I kind of have a method to it all. But I can imagine when I'm done playing, even if I'm back in the U.S., my family's back in the U.S., I'd probably come back like to show my kids, like, this is really cool. Like, you've been to a couple of these, you guys don't remember, but like, it's a really cool thing for Canada.
Yeah, that's really interesting because it sounds a lot like an NFL game in Europe. So the Bengals have played a couple of games in London, and for those 2 games, fans that love American football all over Europe descend upon whatever city that game is, wearing their jerseys of every NFL team. And it's like a big party with a important football game at the end of it. Whereas a Super Bowl is very corporate. It's crazy expensive. It's hard for the average fan to go. So the Grey Cup actually kind of sounds more fun almost than, the frivolity of a Super Bowl.
I was looking forward to what I imagine the Super Bowl would be like. But yeah, the European experience, I'm sure, is a similar experience to what our fans are able to do. I've had a lot of friends come up over the years. Again, it's funny. We didn't make the Grey Cup last year, but it's gotten to the point where my buddies are like, I'm not coming to Hamilton, dude. I'll just go wherever you guys played in the Grey Cup. I'm like, it's not guaranteed every year. But they've really liked, they'll fly in 2 or 3 days before and they really enjoy the party of it, and it's been like a really cool piece of my life and my family's life. That's what I see a lot of my friends from back home or Cincinnati, wherever it is, when they kind of ascend on one of those cities and to support me. It's really cool.
So you're rocking your Bearcat gear, which we appreciate.
Jordan's a thing, right?
What's it been like for you to follow the growth of the program?
I wanted those shorts.
Jordan Brand is back. We love it.
I think we were like Adidas. I still got some Adidas ones. But yeah, I wanted those shorts so bad. When I was a kid too, I could never find them. Or my mom just lied to me and said she could never find them. Well, go ahead.
Well, the bookstore appreciates your patronage for picking up the latest gear. So thank you for doing that. What's it been like for you to follow the growth of the program, particularly the years where they went to the Peach Bowl and the Cotton Bowl and made it to the 14 playoff?
Very proud to have been a part of it. Man, the playoff run, I can remember bringing so much joy to me and my family. And that was around the time of the pandemic too. So there was a lot of nobody knew what was going to happen and all that stuff. And that was just a really awesome experience. I really wanted to go to that game. My firstborn was born around that time though. So I'm like, I can't leave. I'm out. But yeah, a lot of pride, obviously following over the years, been some ups and downs, but that's my university, right? So I'm always going to support it. I really think that the sky is the limit, like with the city of Cincinnati and what, say what you want about the NIL situation, but I think that the city of Cincinnati can help facilitate and growing our program and setting it where it ought to be. I mean, because there's people care so much about the game in the city and in Ohio. So I think that we should always be competing for championships. I really do believe that there's no reason that we can't be. So it's been really cool to watch and the evolution of the whole thing. And, my buddies and I will talk a little bit about, again, some of the NIL stuff. I'm like, this is just crazy. But I do think it provides an opportunity for some of the schools like ours that aren't necessarily as rich historically as the Ohio States and the Alabamas. I think it provides some opportunity to really get to that next level. So I think it's cool.
Have you given much thought to life after football?
I think about this and I think about this and I think about, I'm always worried, am I going to be able to pay the bills? Football is such a volatile profession. So that I've probably wasted a lot of life energy on that, just in the back, that noise in the back of your head. So yeah, I've thought about it. Again, coaching, as I've talked about here, has always been something that has intrigued me because I love the game. I'd love to give back, whatever that looks like, whether it's high school, NCAA, NFL, Canadian Football League. That's always been something that I've aspired to do. I was fortunate this year unfortunate that we didn't play in the Grey Cup, but I was an analyst for the Grey Cup game, so I got an experience with the TV side of it. And I've gotten some really good feedback from that, to be honest with you.
How'd you like it?
Something that I've kind of explored the last month or so and what that might look like, and talking to some talent people about that have reached out. So that's something. And I don't really like being a public person, Dan. I don't love that unless it's football related. And then the other side is just, I have some good relationships with people back home and up here, and I'm really eager to learn anything. So I think I can learn anything, whether it's a sales job or whatever that might be. And put my best foot forward there. But for now, I'm just taking it day at a time and trying to get better at what I'm doing right now, and it'd be a good dad. I mean, most of my days right now in the off season is like I'm on the ground just getting tackled, by my children. So.
Well, I think you'd be a natural as an analyst. If Jason Kelce can do it, and I'm sure Travis is going to do some of that down the road, you can do it too.
Those guys are very talented. So, yeah. But I've had some fantastic arguments with Jason. One of my best compliments I've ever received in my life, we were like 20 years old. We were sitting at Chicago Euro up there by the Chipotle on campus. And he looked at me, he's like, "You're like the only guy I respect in an argument." And we would just bicker all day long. We were still like best friends, But I always loved talking and arguing with him. And that's I think they're naturals at it. He's a natural. I did reach out to him before I had the opportunity to do the Grey Cup game, and he gave me some really good pointers and feedback and what I could do to maybe help that day and early that week, go smoothly, and it really helped.
Well, this has been a lot of fun for me. I could keep you for another hour or two, but you've got kids. You got 3 kids.
Let's grab a couple of beers and really have a good time. It'll be a lot of fun. I'll come visit. I'll come visit you. I'm always looking for reasons to get.
Thank you so much.
I want to bring my family down too, so I'll come visit that.
That's a deal. That's a deal. Zach, congratulations on an awesome career. I hope it continues for several years to come. Maybe I'll get to a Grey Cup
that will be
at some point. That would be a lot of fun.
Sounds
good. Appreciate your time. Thanks so much.